Hi, everybody. This is still Gary Gomes. This is a re-recording of a recording I made this past weekend, April 29th, and I'm going to dance back and forth between that recording, which was done April 29th, and this recording, which is done May 1st. Happy May Day to everyone. If you have if you have um, reminiscence of uh, so so to different people that means different things, and I'm aware of that. But but I but this is often considered to be a pivotal date in the year, and so it seems appropriate I actually tape on this particular day. If you want to get in contact with me for a reading, please contact me at 508-525-0001. I'll be looking at the chart for this, or else contact me. Sorry for the interruption. Contact me at neivas at comcast.net. Um, I'm going to put the captioning on right now, and sometimes this helps, sometimes it doesn't, but we'll see what it does. So again, if you'd like to contact me for a reading, my name is Gary Gomes. I've been a Vedic astrologer for over 30 years, and you can certainly contact me at 508-525-0001 or at neivas at comcast.net. I can also be reached at garygomesg@gmail.com. So you have, and I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, a variety of social media sites. So I'm not really tough to find if you look me up. So let's talk about this week's kind of an important week because we have another eclipse coming, and we just had a bank failure. I think it was Signature Bank. Got brought up by. So I wanted to talk about that. I didn't talk about this last week, but I had actually known about it. One of my students had tipped me off about it, and this is sort of like the start, or I would say the start. The start. And I believe it's Signature Bank. Let me look it up. Hold on. I should be better prepared than this. I apologize. Bank failure. Bank failures. Bank failures. Bank failures. So we've had a few bank failures, obviously. You know, let's see now. I'm sorry, folks. Bank. Silicon Bank. April 30th. Twenty 23. And this was brought out by Chase, I believe by Chase, Morgan Chase. Okay, so no, it's not signature. Signatures new. Signatures old. About a month old. First Republic Bank failed. Actually, is considered to failed today. And they'll be their assets were sold to Chase, I believe, um, and to Morgan Chase. And again, I think this is just digress on this for a few seconds. This is going to be there'll be more bank failures down the road. And again, this is a personal issue. This is a personal issue. I've always thought the worst way to reduce inflation is to raise interest rates. Um, it's an unorthodox position, but I do have an MBA, so I do have some grounding in in how economics works. And but I'm not an expert, nor do I pretend to be. But I always feel that it's sort of like it doesn't address the real problem, which is really too much money chasing after too few goods. If you increase the supply of goods, you can also effectively hit inflation. I think they always these remedies always tend to take out consumers more so than financiers, and so that bothers me on a personal level. And let's go to some other things that are happening. I hope you can see the screen. One of the reasons I'm retaping this is because the screen was acting obstreperous when I looked at the playback, and I'm just trying to make sure it'll go to the right places I want it to go to during this recording. The other thing that's come up is we're still going to have a ton of media issues over the next few months, and also a ton of political scandals. This has come out since I did the initial recording on Saturday. John Roberts, Chief Justice John Roberts' wife, is involved in a sort of a political scandal. And again, there are obviously problems, legal problems with both Trump and Biden in the United States. There are legal problems with journalists in the United States. There are problems with high-ranking officials in the United States. So, depending on which side you listen to, basically we have people lying to us from one side, people claiming credit for deplatforming when they had absolutely nothing to do with it. We also have people, and again, how you view these things is going to really the political side you fall down on is really going to affect how you view these things. So I'm not saying who's right and who's wrong, but this is just sort of like the overall scandal around communications, governments, ethics, and also increased restrictions on the part of government. So Saturn aspecting the sun, as I told you last week, we're having people brought in for misinformation or from both sides of the political spectrum now, but they all tend to have what I would call non-establishment links, or they're persona non grata by the establishment, and that's the Saturn aspect on Jupiter. So if things seem to be going unfairly, this is a relatively you're going to see this phenomenon happening over the next, at least over the next 6 or 7 months, probably into early next year, in which people, depending on your perspective, are being found out or being persecuted. Okay, so just keep that in mind. There's going to be a lot of scandal over the next year or so, and it won't really decrease all that much. You'll see it in large. It'll hit large institutions. The next institutions I think you're going to see hit relatively rapidly are religious institutions, which has been an ongoing thing, and also educational institutions. And you could say, well, that's already happened, in certain cases across the country, so certain places like Florida and other institutions, again, depending on your political perspective, but you'll see this become an international issue. This isn't something that's going to happen just within the United States. You'll also see charges of election fraud coming up, especially between now and May. Those will continue. Those will intensify over the next few months. There's been a case in North Carolina in which the headline was I'm just trying to think of a good way to put it. The headline was essentially phrased in one issue as a restriction on voter rights on one publication I saw, and on the other on cleaning up elections. So it's important to remember. It's important to remember that most media, I won't say all media, but most media, some media try to stay basically neutral, but most media have biases, and this is something I learned way back in journalism school. This was back in the 1970s. This is not something which comes to me as a total shock, and media will cooperate with their sources, or will cooperate with people in power, or will shade the news to look a certain way. What happened with Fox is not a new phenomenon, okay, unfortunately. I can remember when Daniel Shore got fired from CBS for his reporting into the Vietnam War. It isn't something that I'm just trying to think of a good way to put it. Media is, especially in this country, but around the world, is to a certain extent subject to both economic and political pressures. Okay, so in the countries in which it's not economic pressures, and economic pressures and political pressures actually become pretty much the same thing after a while. So this isn't conspiracy theory. This is just the way life works. If you come out, if you want to keep the people in power happy, you'll do certain things. If you want to take them off, you'll do certain things. And you'll notice that media will tend to shift positions when people in power tend to become less powerful, or when they don't have um, anything to fear really from those individuals. So you'll see much more critical assessment going on of, let's say, certain politicians when their when their approval ratings are descending. And this isn't surprising because essentially what happens is uh, news media will get more gumption, will get more energy, uh, and they're aware that sponsors and people in power can hurt them in a variety of ways. In some ways, it's overt, so they can end up in prison. In other ways, it's not overt; they can damage them financially, or they can limit their access, or they can do a variety of other things. So we're working from the assumption that all the information that we're getting is legit, and it's not on either side. I'm just being honest with you as a consumer. This combination tends to expose that quite a bit. There will be some suppression because of Saturn aspect in this combination, but also it'll be an interesting time to watch what people do as opposed to what they say. And especially around the world, we're sort of like heading towards a crisis of confidence or a crisis of leadership, because we've just come out of a pandemic, which was, some would argue, handled well in different countries. Some would argue it was handled poorly in different countries. And but I can't think of any country that has come out of it completely unscathed. Okay. There are countries with lower inflation rates than the United States, than Western European countries, and uh, and that's because of different economic policies those countries adopted. But I think basically everybody is a little bit torn by what happened, and I don't want to. And you'll also see the arts kind of in a quandary within about, well, I would say about um, 3 to 4 days. Venus-Mars conjunction is coming up, and this will come up right on the next eclipse. So let's look at this chart. So the other day we had the moon uh, in this part of Leo, and it's still in Leo, so I really don't feel like I'm giving a different forecast. But that was a day in which giving honor to our forebears and our ancestors was considered to be the right thing to do. This past weekend was focused on wealth. Now, if you see overall, Saturn is aspecting that moon. So this is going to give us bad news about money, okay? Saturn has a reputation of destroying whatever it looks at. So this is why the banking issues came up. Saturn was aspecting moon when it's passing over Purva Phalguni and Uttara Phalguni nakshatras, which are nakshatras connected with wealth and inherited money. Now it's aspecting moon in Uttara Phalguni. So that's philanthropy, things like that. And you will see a lot of philanthropic scandals over the next few months too, by the way. There is a strong desire for change. There's a desire for normalcy. That's definitely a strong desire, but over the next few months, that's going to go away. You're going to see a lot of desire for change, and a lot of attempts to convince people that things are okay the way they are. So I'm not saying they are okay the way they are, or they're not. I'm just saying this is what the messaging is going to be. And you'll also see a lot of messaging saying that the way they are is bad, and people are and people need to throw the rascals out, to use an old English expression or an old American expression. K2 and Libra, we're not going to see an end to these various financial issues until really November or something like that. And again, as I've said before, we're in sort of a tipping point in the economy. I don't think so. Inflation's come down a little bit, but I don't think we're going to avoid a recession. That's just now again. We have had now recession is you have to be careful about recession because recession is a defined economic term. It's not just in terms of how many people are out of work. An economy can be in recession and you can have a very high employment rate. Okay, so essentially it means declining growth for 2 straight quarters, and or a decline in gross national or gross domestic product for 2 quarters. And there are certain exceptions to that, like in COVID, a recession was declared just because of the suddenness of the drop. Okay, so the rapidity of the drop. But actually in COVID, we weren't in economic decline for 2 straight quarters. It was interesting. That was one of the things that was striking about that. But again, the decline was so sharp. They defined it as a recession. So I know this bores a lot of people, but I like to look at world events just a little bit before I look at your horoscopes, and not to bore you, but just to give you a broader framework, because the concept of as above, so below, as it applies to planets, also applies to governments. And what applies to governments actually applies to a certain extent to you, as you're to governments and people who control communications. They'll also apply to you, and it will apply to what you're doing. It won't apply to what you're doing day to day, but it will have broader ramifications. So let's look at the eclipse chart for Friday. Again, and hopefully this will show up. It won't come up on me like before. All right. So this is okay. So the lunar eclipse, and I'm tending to pay more attention to this lunar eclipse than a lot of others, because the moon is with K2 in a sign of trade. That's what happened the last 2 to 3 eclipses. But also Saturn is avoiding that combination. So Saturn's in a different sign. It was in a different sign for the last eclipse. But also Jupiter wasn't afflicted as it is right now in the last eclipse. So when Jupiter gets eclipsed and it's also aspected by Saturn, that tends to make people a little bit more depressed, or a little bit more willing to look at the worst aspect of things. So Saturn's aspect on Jupiter tends to make us a little bit more self-disciplined. That's a good thing to a certain extent. But also with Rahu, there'll be this frustration level building. And with the sun in Aries, there's a strong desire to move forward, to take command, to fix things. And also people are going to be saying, why us? What have we done? We've done nothing wrong, and we deserve more than this. That's the Sun Rahu conjunction. And we can conquer this. And Saturn's just boxing in the sun sign, the sun and Mercury. So it's giving some kind of depressing news. The sun will move on around May 15th to the next sign. Mercury will go direct to the next sign. And so we're not going to be replaying narratives the way we have over the past few weeks. will have some sudden signs of progress, but that really won't come until the end of May. And the other thing is we have a Venus Mars in this eclipse. So this will set up more arguments in relationships. This will set up more aggressive action in relationships. Venus as a planet is always stronger than Mars. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Its natural strength. Venus is the most naturally strong planet there is because it's the brightest. That's how they measure natural strength. But it's at really early degrees of Gemini, so there won't be a lot of conciliatory activity. Mars is going to change signs and go into Cancer in a few days, and that'll make people very angry. Okay, so I'm expecting to see a lot of demonstrations, a lot of anger, a lot of protests over the next couple of months, maybe spilling over into the summertime. The other thing, and again, this is not just in the United States, it's around the world. The other thing is you have Cancer, that's on the home front, that's where it'll start. As we go to the eclipse maximum, which is a new technique, which I haven't used before. And again, I'm going to do this. It goes to Leo. So I'm going to shut this down just to make sure we get the right chart up. And that'll mean a lot of current leaders, even in your work life, even in your home life, will tend to be attacked and hurt. Okay, so I think you'll see a lot of upending of traditions, a lot of changes in governments around the world. The governments who do manage to stay in power will do so through unethical means or quasi-dictatorial means because of the Saturn aspect on the sun, but people will not be happy about it. Also, just looking at the chart, at this chart, this will give some financial gains, but it favors gains through aggression. So the Venus-Mars conjunction in the 11th house is not good. The Moon K2 conjunction will build up popular support, but also make people a little bit depressed or a little bit anxious about what's going to happen. So bear in mind, one of the things that's nice about Moon K2 conjunctions is your intuition tends to get really, really strong. Okay, it tends to get really, really sharp. And we'll feel those effects at least until the next cycle of eclipses around late October, early November. And that's all that I ever really do stress the eclipse influences out for. I know some astrologers stretch them out for 9 months, but I just, unless you have planets like directly connected with the eclipse points. So let's say the last eclipse was kind of rough on me. Just personally, I'm just telling you this because I have planets close to that eclipse point. And I also had K2 really close to a really important planet in the chart. But basically, this particular pattern will affect people with affect Aries, Libra, and to a lesser extent Capricorn and Cancer most fully, and also Leo. Okay, Capricorn, Aquarius, Cancer, and Leo most completely. So the good news is you'll have some unexpected breakthroughs. You'll have, especially if you're creative or especially if you're looking for new business opportunities or looking for spirituality or looking for things like that. That's fantastic. Even romantically, it'll propose. It'll actually help you make some breakthroughs. and even business wise. But it'll be a while before you can take advantage of those things. So I think basically this is not a horrible eclipse. It does look a little bit pessimistic. The Saturn aspect on Sun, I'm not crazy about, because that does tend to make governments much more, and bosses much more dictatorial. It can trigger layoffs. It already has, by the way. The high-tech sector is laying off like crazy. High-tech, especially communications sector, social media. And also, at least in terms of the chart, just double checking something. At least in terms of the chart, this Jupiter-Sun combination can have people looking more critically at religion, but also seeking more spiritual answers in life. It'll actually make religious positions more extreme if that's possible. So the ones who are now, we don't need religion for anything. You keep it out of politics. It'll actually put make other people more fanatical, or more fanatical. Is perhaps the wrong word. More intense about their religious beliefs. Okay, because fanatical has a value judgment on it, and I don't want to put that on it. So more intense, more dogmatic about their religious beliefs. So this is going to be an interesting time. It's potentially a schismatic point in the chart. And when I say schismatic, essentially you'll have more people looking for separation or independence, maybe more attempts at governments to break up. I don't think that'll hit really strongly in the United States, but a lot of legal setbacks for a lot of people in power. That's almost guaranteed. Or a lot of people taking power, or wanting to take back power. So I think the next few months are going to be really, really interesting. And again, like I said, sort of like a pummeling of scandals, truly, and like I said, in highly placed institutions, So this is going to be interesting. In terms of individual charts, Aries is going to have a lot of dissatisfaction with its luck, with its communication skills, with its wealth position. It'll be more aggressively seeking out wealth, and that's because of the first lord and the third house, along with Venus, and arguing a little bit more with relationship partners about wealth because of Mars with Venus. Moon and Ketu are in the seventh house. Relationship partners will seem detached. It's just kind of a critical month for relationships for Aries and Libra. It'll be a lot easier to get into fights or arguments, or for people to change their minds about who they like and who they don't like. And the Saturn in the 11th house will also give some bad advice from friends. I wouldn't listen to friends' advice about things like this right now. If you're steady and you stay stable in relationships for Aries, then and stick with it until at least the end of the year, the relationship will endure. But I wouldn't suggest making any major changes in relationships in the sign. Particularly not a good month for getting into new relationships or new business partnerships for Aries, but good for exploring what those could be, good for exploring or getting to know different people. For Taurus, and again, that was April 15th to May 15th. For Taurus has May 15th through to June 15th, a lot of arguments about money, a lot of arguments about status and home, spending money on the home. A lot of arguments about family, maybe even family members leaving or getting ill. Be careful about that. The other thing is you have Moon and Ketu in the sixth house, so some desire to overconsume, to bulk up, or to eat a little too much, or to drink a little too much. And Saturn aspect in that 12th house doesn't look good for holding on to money. But again, if you're careful, if you don't spend impulsively, which Rahu can do, Rahu can make people spend in order to fill a void in their lives. If they can do something a little more creative, like maybe exercise, that would probably be a better thing for them. And again, just be a little bit leery about spending this month, because you'll probably end up dissatisfied with what you spend money on. Between June 15th and July 15th, we have Gemini. This is Gemini's sun in Vedic astrology. Venus and Mars are in the first house. Again, difficult relationship-wise, because Venus is the overall indicator of relationships in the Vedic chart. It can make this sign a little bit overly sexual, a little bit more ready to express themselves sexually. But again, you have to watch out for linking up with people who seem to be friends, but really don't have your best interests at heart. And also the Moon Ketu combination, unexpected love affairs, unexpected love opportunities, unexpected business opportunities. And Saturn's in the ninth house, which again, slow luck, but good luck. For Taurus, I didn't mention this earlier. Career-wise, Taurus should do extremely well this month. But again, you just have to really be careful how you spend. But getting back to Gemini again, bosses will be tough, but it'll improve your chances also if you're in school, if a Taurus is in school, or studying, or if a Gemini is in school, my apologies. If a Gemini is in school or studying high intellectual subjects, it's a good month to buckle down and really work hard. For Cancer, Cancer has the Lord of the seventh and the eighth. So again, relationship partners will seem to be a little bit secluded. There'll be a little bit of anxiety over losing relationships. Venus and Mars are in the 12th house, so although passion may be high, this sign will probably be a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more aggressive. Again, there'll be a tendency to be connected with home affairs, with improving home or office. There'll be some anxiety about career, but basically it's misplaced anxiety. And also, at least from the chart, I think you'll see increased financial expenses because of this anxiety about position for Cancer. So again, there'll be uncertainty about status. Some Cancers may take a hit professionally, or have worry about fears to their status. They shouldn't, because a lot of this stuff will be gone within about 3 weeks or so. For Leo, as August 15th, so Cancer is July 15th to August 15th. Leo is August 15th to September 15th. And that sign has Venus and Mars in the 11th house, so good for gains, more contact with people who are attractive or beautiful. Moon and Ketu in the 3rd house, a lot of desire to spend money or to have fun. Saturn's in the 7th house, so there's a strong commitment on the part of the sign to stay with the relationship partners. It's like a contractor to stay in business relationships. They'll feel like they're doing their luck by doing so, but they're really not. Okay, so that's an illusion. But again, there will be a strong desire to learn new things, to explore new things, to try out new things. And financially, Leo looks good. Relationship-wise, probably best not to stray too far from home. And also, so there's some hesitancy in relationships for this sign. For Virgo's September 15th to October 15th. Moon is in the second house, so there'll be unexpected gains, but also a lot of expenses connected with that. So there'll be a frustration for the sign because everything it spends will go out for some housing related need or some business related need. But there will be at least be gains for the sign, some financial gains and some unexpected financial gains for the sign. Yeah, so vehicle expenses, things like that, car expenses, housing and business expenses. For Saturn is in the sixth house, so they'll have to be careful about their health, especially in terms of digestive systems. And this is amplified by these planets in the eighth house. So that'll give some frustration in terms of elimination problems. But the sign will seem very attractive to people. A lot of people will be drawn to the sign. Venus and Mars in the 11th and the 10th house give good financial gains and movement in career. For Libra has Moon and Ketu in the first house. That's kind of important because we have this cluster of planets in the seventh house, so there'll be a lot of relationship interest, a lot of business interest, a lot of desire coming from the sign, but not really the courage to go forward with it because Saturn's aspect in the seventh house. It'll have a ton more work put on it from unexpected sources. And Venus and Mars are in the ninth house, which is very good for financial gains for the sign. But they'll have to aggressively pursue knowledge in order to get it. One of the good things about this sign is Saturn's in the fifth house, and that's actually considered a good placement for Libra. So essentially, you'll have a return to new knowledge, innovation, hard work connected with it, and also a certain element of pride. You'll get the attention of people in higher positions in a good way. Scorpio has Saturn in the fourth house. Its Lord is in the eighth house. So again, there'll be arguments with relationship partners, especially about financial situations. And money is kind of an issue for the sign, especially for children, because of the Rahu, Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury conjunction over here in the fifth house. And in the sixth house. And Scorpio has some good possibility for gains from this placement, from other people's money from this placement, but it will really be next month. It'll improve financially. Moon is in the 12th house along with Ketu, so be careful where you spend your money on, especially in terms of higher learning. This is not necessarily going to give you good rewards in terms of higher education. For Sagittarius has Saturn in the third house. It will be brave. It will be bold. Jupiter, Sun, Rahu, Mercury in the fifth house. Problems with children, although children will be good, but they'll also be kind of forceful and kind of greedy. Some relationship tension because of Venus and Mars in the seventh house. And again, don't trust your friends for Sagittarius rising. Again, this is true basically throughout the rest of the year until around late fall. For Capricorn has Saturn in the second house, a lot of focus on money and security, although fear of loss and fear of status and stability because of this conjunction in the fourth house. Sixth house has Venus and Mars in it, so stay away from arguments with co-workers or with employees. And Moon and Ketu are in the 10th house. a lot of career sidelines from you, but you'll do well career-wise. For Aquarius, Aquarius actually has a relatively good month for relationship matters. There'll be a lot of temptations thrown to the signs, to be honest with you. So I would encourage you to be wary of those. But and again, there'll be miscommunications with relationship partners over the next week. But some good potential for love affairs or romantic involvements. Just so long as you keep it um, in the possibility stage. I wouldn't want you to get to jeopardize your current relationship. Current relationships could get a little bit aggressive though. And the moon and Ketu conjunction in the ninth house is actually considered pretty good because it'll give you access to more knowledge um, and more secrets, and also self-improvement. For Pisces, Pisces has this conjunction in the second house, so it'll be dissatisfied with money. This is April, Mar March 15th to April 15th. I didn't give the other months, but I think you can figure them out. And Venus and Mars, again, relationship arguments, a lot of relationship arguments this month. A lot of deep study of self and changes to self. But this time I'll have to watch out a little bit for some depression around the time of the eclipses. And again, watch out for sudden expenditures, okay, around, especially around the time of the eclipse and a little bit later on. It's it's really expenses you can't avoid, like car repairs and things like that. But just try to be careful. Try not to spend down everything you have. This is true of almost every sign. Right now, try to keep a little bit of money in the bank. There'll be a temptation to just spend. A lot of people, and there'll be this push pull because of Saturn aspecting Sun, Jupiter, and Mercury. So Sun, Jupiter, and Mercury are going to make people feel a little bit restless or really optimistic and strong risk takers. And Saturn's going to say, yeah, but what will you do in the future? And I think I would listen to Saturn in this particular case. There are some grounds into which you can take risks, but only if it's a new technology. Don't go to new currencies, go to new technology. Please don't go to new currencies. That's Bitcoin is not going to be a viable commodity for at least another year, if then. And I strongly distrust that. You know, is certainly tempting given all the financial instability in the world right now, but there are alternative systems of trade coming about which are going to be more lucrative than Bitcoin. I can almost assure you of that. The other thing is, so let's go over here to the map. I don't have a lot of time to do this right now because I'm kind of overspoken, but basically we see Saturn and Venus in conjunction or lining up over near Hawaii, but not really in Hawaii, near the Aleutians. And there's also a Mars line and a Saturn line happening near the Aleutians. Now, this could give a potential for an earthquake, but again, only a potential. Mars isn't particularly strong right now, and you'll see more water issues coming up with Mars over the next few months than earthquake issues. And the other thing is we have a Mars line running through California. So we do know that there are going to be water issues in California already because of the melting in the mountains and more flooding. So that's sort of like a giveaway right there. I hadn't even thought about that when I said that. And also if we look at the Midwest, this is for the eclipse now. So this is, but again, this week will sort of lead up to this. Rahu, Jupiter, Mercury, so there'll be scandals in Minnesota, all the way down through Texas, all the way down through Mexico City, and also some institutional scandals in all the way over to Louisiana and going up north through Michigan and into Ontario. We have Mars line, so there'll be potential for violence in, that's a Mercury line, I'm sorry, potential for land disputes and misrepresentation in Louisiana, all the way up through Ohio and also Mississippi. And there's a sun line running through Florida. So, and also through Cubas and also through Panama, it looks like, and also close to Peru. And so you'll see a lot of reporting coming out of those areas and also out of the area in between Georgia and New England and Quebec because of that area being bound together between a Saturn and a Mars line. The other thing to look out for is this part of the world will have economic issues or start to have economic issues. We know about the lawsuit with between Disney and DeSantis. That's not really, that's a government issue, but it's also a legal issue. So we'll be hearing a lot more about that, obviously, over the next few weeks. But also, I think one of the things which is more outside of our scope, that's more of a cultural issue. It's certainly a free speech issue, but it's more of a cultural issue for the United States. I've been more worried about the Saturn and Mars line, essentially, and the Venus line, essentially encapsulating all of South America. That leaves South America extremely vulnerable because the Venus is in Gemini. It's in a nakshatra ruled by Mars, and it's in a relatively violent nakshatra. Okay, so I'm a bit worried about violence in eastern Brazil, economic problems through Brazil, Uruguay, and Paraguay, and also this entire section of South America having economic and rulership problems. So I think we can see more authoritarian rule happening in Brazil, although the leadership is different, than when they had a more populist candidate in. But I think you'll see the people starting to get more edgy in Brazil, and also over supplies of goods, over what they can get and what they can't get. Greenland really isn't part of the scenario. Iceland's between a Venus and a Mars line, so this Saturday, I said there's some potential for volcanoes in Iceland, some potential for bad weather in Western Ireland, and also as we go over here, I have to go closer. Sorry, folks. As we go over here, we have scandal over most of Europe and most of North Africa, including Libya and Algeria. Okay. This entire region, a lot of scandals. Okay. There's a sun moon line crossing right next to Turkey and over Greece. So we know there are elections in Turkey this month. This will be, and they're very close. I know that as well. A lot of indicators. I'm kind of torn as to who's going to win that election, just to be honest with you, because there are some indicators that indicate Turkey's ready for a change. other indicators which make the race very, very tight. So this part of the world will be under tension for maybe until the end of May. We'll get a resolution probably on May 28th when the runoffs occur. And also Egypt is under a lot of tension, um, a lot of doubts about the government, and also Sudan, as we've seen before, down into um, actually it looks like that's about Sudan down to Zimbabwe and South Africa. I think you're going to see it. This is Zimbabwe. I'm sorry, Mozambique. My apologies. And also in Saudi Arabia, some threat to the ruling party. Finally, as we go over to this Venus line, again, some potential for flooding Venus. It does bring a lot of rain with it wherever it goes in the chart, and also some desire for reform. I'm not seeing a loosening of the war in Ukraine anytime soon. Um, maybe by late May, you'll see some kind of a increased communication there. India has Rahu, Jupiter, Mercury lines running over it as the Sri Lanka. So again, this to me indicates some problems with elected leaders, especially in the Bengali region and down to Tamil Nadu. But as we go over to Vietnam and especially Laos and Cambodia, a strong potential for violence there, and also a strong potential for violence in central Russia and even in China. So things don't look placid this week. China is still hemmed in between Mars and Saturn. That makes its economy slow or sluggish. And we have a whole slew of lines close to Japan, but not interfering with it, hitting New Zealand. And we have a Venus line hitting over Australia. So Venus, so what Eastern Australia looks okay, maybe excessive rainfall, maybe some damage in terms of its entertainment industry. But actually, New Zealand looks more like it's prone to damage, and maybe there'll be earthquakes or volcanoes in this part of the world over here. Okay, down crossing over into New Zealand. So that's it for this week. Thanks for watching again. I'm going to post this on YouTube. Hopefully everything got captured, as I don't think it did last time. And I love you all. Take care of yourselves. I wish you realization. I wish you the best. And remember, every problem brings opportunity. Okay, so these are all opportunities to reevaluate your lives, figure out what you want to do, plan for the future. This isn't the end. We're very far from that. All right, bye everyone. I love you all. And thank you.